The human engineer stood quietly in the massive repair bay, surrounded by machines that hummed with soft energy. The air felt different on this alien flagship, heavier somehow, filled with a strange metallic scent and faint light that glowed from panels built into the walls. He had worked on many ships before, but none like this one. Everything here felt alive, as if the ship itself watched him. He checked the toolkit again, making sure every instrument was ready. Precision mattered, especially when dealing with technology that came from a species far older and more advanced than humanity. Even after years of working with alien systems, he still felt a small weight of doubt whenever he touched something unfamiliar. The doors behind him opened with a smooth sound, and conversations around the bay immediately grew quieter. Crew members stepped aside, creating space without needing orders. She entered slowly, her presence commanding attention without effort. The alien warrior was taller than most humans, her posture straight and controlled. Her armor reflected faint light, layered with elegant lines that looked both beautiful and dangerous. Every movement she made felt deliberate, as if shaped by years of discipline. The armor was not just protection. It was a symbol of rank and power. He lowered his gaze respectfully, aware of her status. He had read reports about her before arriving. She was known across multiple star systems as a brilliant commander, undefeated in many battles. To him, she was simply another client needing repairs, but he understood that to others, she was something close to a legend. 2 guards followed behind her, their expressions serious. One of them spoke first, explaining that her armor had suffered damage during the last battle. The Empire's own specialists had attempted repairs but failed to restore full functionality. That failure alone made the atmosphere tense. The human engineer listened carefully, asking calm and practical questions. He did not rush or show fear. Instead, he approached the armor with curiosity, studying it like a puzzle waiting to be solved. When she stood in front of him, he noticed small scratches across the plating and deeper fractures hidden beneath energy layers. The armor seemed almost organic, reacting slightly to his presence. Data flowed across his handheld device, but much of it remained unreadable without deeper analysis. "May I begin?" he asked politely. She nodded once. The guards hesitated but eventually stepped back. He sensed their doubt. To them, he was fragile, slow, and unfamiliar. Humans were still new to many advanced alliances, and not everyone trusted their methods. He moved slowly, removing outer segments of armor with careful motions. Instead of forcing panels open, he followed natural seams, letting the system respond to gentle pressure. The armor released with a quiet sound, almost like a breath. She watched him closely. Most technicians rushed, driven by confidence or pride. He worked differently. He paused often, observing how the material reacted before continuing. He adjusted energy flows gradually, rather than resetting entire systems. The approach seemed simple, but it required patience and understanding. After several minutes, she spoke for the first time. Her voice was calm, but there was curiosity behind it. "You are not afraid?" He smiled faintly, without looking up. "I am careful," he replied. "Fear makes hands shake. Carefulness makes work better." A few crew members exchanged glances. His tone carried no arrogance, only quiet confidence. As time passed, silence filled the repair bay. He focused completely on the armor, scanning internal circuits and stabilizing damaged connections. He realized the system did more than protect her physically. It responded to neural signals and emotional patterns, adjusting defense strategies automatically. That discovery fascinated him. Instead of treating the armor like a machine, he began to treat it like a partner. He adjusted settings slowly, allowing it to learn from his changes, rather than forcing new commands. The energy readings stabilized almost immediately. She noticed the difference too. Her posture relaxed slightly, and the faint tension around her shoulders faded.
"You treat it gently," she said.
He nodded. Sometimes things break because they are pushed too hard.
Gentle work helps them remember how to function.
The idea seemed unfamiliar to her. Over the next hours, they spoke only occasionally. She asked questions about human technology, surprised by how much humans relied on adaptability instead of strict design rules. He explained that humans often learned through mistakes and repairs rather than perfection. The more they talked, the less distance existed between them. He learned that her species valued strength above all else. Warriors were trained from a young age to suppress hesitation and emotion. Weakness could not exist on the battlefield. Yet she seemed curious about human perspectives, especially about emotions. During a brief pause, he offered her water. She accepted after a moment of hesitation, studying him as if trying to understand something deeper.
"You speak to me as if I am not a commander," she said quietly. He shrugged lightly.
Right now, you are someone with broken armor. Titles can wait. For a second, surprise crossed her face, followed by something softer that disappeared quickly. He returned to work, adjusting the internal structure. The armor responded more smoothly each time he made a change. Data readings showed improvement, though he avoided celebrating too early. Outside the repair bay, rumors began spreading. Some crew members questioned why a human had been chosen. Others grew curious after seeing early results. Hours turned into days. She returned regularly, standing nearby while he worked. The conversations grew longer, moving beyond technical topics. She asked about Earth's oceans, human music, and why humans formed such strong emotional bonds even with strangers. He answered honestly, sometimes with humor. She listened carefully, absorbing every detail. One evening, while recalibrating a joint mechanism, he noticed a slight fluctuation whenever she stepped closer. The armor's energy stabilized when she was calm and shifted when she seemed uncertain. He wondered if the system amplified emotional signals rather than suppressing them. Instead of reporting it immediately, he chose to observe further. The repair bay became quieter during late shifts. Most crew members left, leaving only soft light and distant sounds of the ship. In that calm environment, conversations felt easier. She spoke about battle for the first time. Not victories, but expectations placed upon her. Being strong meant never showing doubt. Being a leader meant always having answers. He listened without interrupting, offering simple responses rather than advice. You humans seem comfortable with uncertainty, she said. We don't always have a choice, he replied. Sometimes not knowing is normal. As he worked near a damaged plating joint, his hands moved with steady precision. The moment felt quiet and strangely peaceful. He adjusted a final connection, and the armor's systems aligned smoothly, sending a soft vibration through the structure. She inhaled, slowly, feeling the difference. It feels lighter, she said. He smiled. That means it trusts the changes. She looked at him for a long moment, as if searching for something beyond words. Around them, the repair bay remained silent. The human engineer realized that their conversations had changed something in both of them. The distance between alien warrior and human technician had faded, replaced by mutual understanding. He did not know what would come next, but for the first time since arriving, he felt completely at ease. And as she watched him continue working with calm focus, she felt something unfamiliar growing. Not duty, not strategy, but curiosity that felt strangely warm. Neither of them spoke about it yet, but the silence between them no longer felt empty. The repair bay felt different now. What had once been a place of tension and quiet judgment had slowly become familiar, almost calm. The human engineer arrived early, as he often did, carrying his tools with steady hands. He had learned the rhythm of the ship, the soft hums and distant vibrations that told him everything was working as it should. He did not expect her to arrive so soon. When the doors opened, he sensed her presence before he saw her. She walked in alone this time, without guards or attendants. Her armor was active but not fully sealed, the surface flowing gently with faint energy lines. It looked stronger than before, more balanced. She stopped a few steps away and waited. He looked up and gave a small nod. "You came earlier today." "Yes," she replied. "The armor felt different after the last adjustments. I wanted to test it." He gestured toward the platform. "We can run diagnostics first. It's better to understand the changes before pushing it." She stepped onto the platform without hesitation. As he connected his device, streams of data appeared, far cleaner than before. Stability levels were higher. Reaction delay was lower. The armor responded smoothly to minor movements, almost anticipating her intent. "This is unusual," he said quietly, more to himself than to her. She tilted her head slightly. "Is that bad?" "No," he said quickly. "It's just the armor is adapting faster than expected." She watched him closely as he worked, noticing how his expression changed when he focused. He was calm, but not distant. Every movement had purpose. As the diagnostics continued, an alert appeared. Not an error, but a pattern. Emotional feedback loops were increasing system efficiency. The armor was no longer just reacting. It was learning. He hesitated before explaining. "Your armor responds to more than physical commands. It reflects how you feel." She frowned slightly. "It should suppress emotion, not respond to it." "That's how it was designed," he agreed. "But after the damage, something shifted. Now it seems to work better when you are balanced." She considered this in silence. Her species did not value emotional balance. Strength came from control, not understanding. Emotions were trained away, reduced to manageable signals. Yet here was proof that something deeper could be useful. They began light movement tests. She moved across the platform, drawing a practice blade and stepping into basic combat stances. The armor flowed with her, smoother than ever. Her strikes were faster, her balance more precise. She stopped and looked down at her hands. "It feels like it knows me better." He nodded. Maybe it always did. It just wasn't allowed to show it. The words stayed with her. Over the next few days, the tests grew more intense. Combat simulations, stress responses, rapid adjustments. Each time, the armor performed better than before. Other officers took notice. Whispers spread across the ship. Some praised human ingenuity. Others grew uneasy. A senior alien officer confronted the engineer one evening, questioning his methods. The human listened respectfully, explaining that he had not rewritten the armor's core systems, only allowed them to function more naturally. "You are changing more than metal," the officer warned. "You are influencing our warriors," the engineer replied calmly. "I am helping the armor work as intended. Any change beyond that comes from the wearer." The officer left without another word. Later that night, the engineer remained in the bay, reviewing data. He sensed movement behind him and turned to see her standing quietly near the entrance.
"You are being questioned," she said. He smiled faintly.
"That happens when something works better than expected." She walked closer, her footsteps soft. "In my culture, change is feared, especially when it comes from outsiders." "I understand," he said. "Humans were once feared too." She looked at him with curiosity. "How did you overcome it?" "We didn't," he replied honestly. "We learned to live with it." She stood beside him, watching the data scroll past. The light reflected softly across her face. In that moment, she did not look like a commander or a warrior. She looked thoughtful, almost uncertain. "I have fought since I was young," she said quietly. Victory was always expected. There was no room to ask why. He listened. "Since working with you," she continued, "I find myself asking questions I was never trained to ask." He glanced at her, surprised by her openness. That is not weakness, he said gently. It means you are growing. Instead, she looked at the armor displayed on the platform. If this makes me different, will others still follow me? They will, he said, because strength that understands itself lasts longer. The silence between them felt heavy but not uncomfortable. The next day, an emergency alert echoed through the ship. A distant system had fallen under attack. The fleet was ordered to prepare for engagement. She was summoned immediately. Before leaving, she stopped by the repair bay. "Will it hold?" she asked, placing a hand lightly against the armor. He met her gaze. "Yes. And so will you." She nodded once, then turned to leave. But at the doorway, she paused.
"You will be here when I return," he answered without hesitation. Yes, the battle did not reach them immediately, but tension filled every corridor.
The engineer worked through the hours, refining systems and monitoring incoming data. He watched her combat feed as simulations turned into reality. She fought with precision and restraint, protecting her allies instead of pursuing reckless offense. The armor adapted perfectly, amplifying her intent rather than overriding it. When the enemy retreated, relief spread through the ship. She returned later, armor marked with signs of combat, but systems stable. She removed her helmet slowly, breathing deeply. "It worked," she said. He smiled. "You worked?" She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "When I was out there, I was not afraid. That has never happened before." "That means you trusted yourself," he replied. She studied his face as if trying to understand something unspoken. He shook his head. "No. We just choose hope, even when trust is hard." The words lingered as he helped her remove damaged sections. Their hands briefly brushed. Neither of them moved away immediately. The moment passed quietly, but something had changed. Later, as the repairs finished, she remained standing near him instead of leaving. "I have another question," she said softly. He looked up. "You can ask." "In human culture," she began carefully, "what does it mean when someone stays, even when they are not required to?" "It usually means they care." She absorbed the answer in silence. The repair bay lights dimmed slightly as the ship shifted into a quieter state. Outside, stars drifted slowly past. Neither of them spoke again for a long time. But both understood that whatever was forming between them was no longer just about armor or duty. It was something new, and neither of them knew where it would lead. The ship moved through deep space with quiet determination, its engines creating a steady vibration that could be felt beneath the floor. Inside the repair bay, the human engineer focused on his work, though his thoughts wandered more often than before. The armor systems displayed stable readings, yet he continued making small adjustments, refining details that others might ignore. The recent battle had changed something, not only in the armor, but in her. She arrived later than usual, walking slowly as if carrying unseen weight. The armor covered her completely now, sealed for combat readiness, but when she removed her helmet, her expression showed exhaustion mixed with thoughtfulness. "You should rest," he said gently. "I have rested," she replied, though her voice suggested otherwise. He did not argue. Instead, he prepared the diagnostic tools while she stood quietly nearby. The repair bay lights reflected across her armor, revealing faint scratches that told stories of combat. Data streamed across his screen. System integrity remained strong, but emotional response levels were higher than before. The armor had begun responding not only to physical signals, but to subtle changes in mood and intention. "It continues to adapt," he said. She nodded. "I feel it reacting before I move. It is different from before." He adjusted a small panel. Before, it controlled you more. Now it supports you. She watched him carefully. "You speak as if you understand it better than its creators." He shrugged lightly. Sometimes distance gives a different view. Outside the bay, alarm sounded briefly before fading. The ship remained on high alert. Reports of enemy movement spread through the crew, creating a quiet tension that filled every corridor. She remained standing close, observing his hands as they worked. "During the battle," she said after a long silence, "I remembered something you told me about humans fighting for connection." He glanced at her, and it changed how I moved, she admitted. I stopped thinking only about victory. I thought about protecting those beside me. He smiled faintly. "That sounds like strength." She did not respond immediately. Instead, she stepped onto the platform, allowing him to access deeper layers of the armor. He moved carefully, removing outer segments and checking internal systems. The moment felt familiar now, almost routine. Days passed quickly. Training sessions, diagnostics, brief conversations that grew more personal without either of them noticing when the shift happened. She began asking about small details, human traditions, memories from Earth, what humans did when they were uncertain. He answered honestly, sometimes sharing stories from his own life. She listened closely, absorbing each word. One evening, a senior commander entered the repair bay without warning. His presence filled the room with authority. "You are growing too close," the commander said directly to her. She straightened but did not step away from the engineer. "He is performing his duty." "That is not my concern," the commander replied. "Your focus must remain clear. Emotional distractions weaken leadership." The engineer remained silent, allowing her to respond. She spoke calmly. "My performance has improved." The commander hesitated, but could not deny the truth. After a tense moment, he left without another word. The silence that followed felt heavy. "I did not mean to create problems," the engineer said quietly. "You did not," she replied. "Change always creates resistance." Despite her calm tone, he sensed uncertainty beneath her words. The next day, the fleet received urgent news. The enemy had developed a weapon capable of disrupting advanced neural interfaces. Several Allied ships reported system failures during combat. Her armor relied heavily on neural synchronization. Preparations began immediately. Engineers across the ship worked to strengthen defenses against the new threat. The human engineer focused on protecting her systems, adding layers of redundancy inspired by human technology. "These adjustments may feel different," he explained. "They reduce direct neural control slightly, but increase stability." She trusted him without hesitation. Do it. As he worked, he noticed how natural their interaction had become. The formality between them had faded, replaced by quiet understanding. During a late-night calibration, the repair bay was nearly empty. Soft light filled the space, creating a calm atmosphere that felt separate from the rest of the ship. She removed her helmet and sat on the edge of the platform, watching him. "You never treat me as fragile?" she said suddenly. He looked up, surprised. "You are not fragile." "Others see only strength," she continued. "You see something else." "I see someone trying to carry too much alone," he replied gently. Her gaze softened. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the faint sounds of machinery. "I do not understand human emotions fully," she admitted. "In my culture, feelings are controlled, shaped into tools. Yet with you, I feel different." He paused, unsure how to respond without crossing boundaries. "Different how?" he asked carefully. She searched for words. Less alone. The honesty in her voice surprised him. Before he could answer, alarms suddenly blared across the ship. Red lights flashed and automated announcements echoed through the corridors. Enemy forces had arrived. She stood immediately, sealing her armor with practiced efficiency. The calm atmosphere vanished, replaced by urgency. "I must go," she said. He nodded, stepping aside as she prepared to leave. But before reaching the door, she turned back. "You will monitor the systems?" "Yes," he said. Their eyes met briefly, filled with unspoken trust. The battle began with chaos. Enemy ships deployed waves of energy that interfered with advanced technology. Reports of malfunction spread quickly. Several warriors lost synchronization with their armor, forcing retreats. The engineer monitored her status constantly. Data fluctuated, but remained stable longer than expected. The human modification slowed the disruption. "She is holding," he whispered to himself. On the battlefield, she moved with focus and determination. The armor responded smoothly, adapting to each challenge. She protected Allied ships, guiding formations with precision. Then a powerful surge struck. Warning signals flooded the engineer's screen. Neural feedback spiked dangerously. He initiated emergency protocols remotely, stabilizing energy flow. "Come on," he murmured, adjusting controls. After several tense seconds, the readings stabilized again. She returned to the ship hours later, damaged but alive. The repair bay doors opened as she walked in, movements slower than usual. He approached quickly, concern visible on his face. "Are you injured?" "Only tired," she said, removing her helmet. Strands of hair fell across her face, and for the first time, he saw clear exhaustion in her eyes. He guided her to the platform and began emergency repairs. Silence filled the room as he worked quickly, focusing entirely on restoring functionality. She watched him quietly. After a long moment, she spoke softly. "During the battle, I thought I might not return. And I realized there was something I needed to understand before that happened." He glanced up, sensing the weight behind her words. She took a slow breath, as if gathering courage. "I have studied human relationships," she said carefully. "I have listened to your stories and observed your behavior. There is one concept I do not fully understand." He waited. She looked directly at him, her voice softer than he had ever heard. "Do you love me, human?" His hands froze. The question hung in the air, heavy and fragile at the same time. He felt his thoughts scatter, unsure how to respond. He knew her culture did not use the word lightly. For her, it was not a casual question, but something deeply serious. He searched for words, but found none immediately. Outside, alarms faded as the ship settled into post-battle quiet. Inside the repair bay, only the sound of his breathing filled the silence. She watched him patiently, waiting, and for the first time since he had met her, the human engineer felt completely uncertain. The human engineer stood very still, his hands hovering above the open armor panel. Tools lay scattered on the work table, their tiny lights blinking as if nothing important had happened. But something important had happened. The air in the repair bay felt thicker, like even the ship itself was listening. She stood in front of him without her helmet. Her face was calm, but her eyes were not. There was a careful honesty there, and also a kind of courage he had only seen in battle reports. Only this time, the risk was not against an enemy. It was against uncertainty. He swallowed and forced himself to breathe slowly. He understood that her question was not simple for her. In her culture, words were measured, and feelings were handled like weapons. Kept controlled, kept private. If she spoke this way now, it meant something was changing inside her that she could not ignore. He lowered his hands and stepped back slightly, not to create distance, but to give the moment respect. "I don't want to answer in a way that hurts you," he said quietly. She did not move.
"Then answer in a way that is true." That was the problem. Truth had many shapes.
He cared for her. He respected her. He admired her courage and her discipline. He also felt something deeper growing every time she returned to the repair bay, every time she trusted him, every time she allowed him close to the most protected part of her life. But love meant different things to different beings. If he said yes too quickly, He might misunderstand what she was asking. If he said no, he might break something that could not be repaired. He looked at the armor's inner framework and thought about how it had changed. It once tried to force her into rigid control. Now it supported her with balance. Maybe the answer needed to be the same. Support, not force. He set down his tool gently. In human culture, he began, love is not a single feeling. It's a choice, repeated many times. It's care, it's respect, it's wanting someone to be safe and happy, even when it costs you something. She listened closely, her posture still. He continued, speaking carefully in basic words so there would be no confusion. I care about you very much. I respect you. I want you to return from every battle. I want you to feel less alone, if that is what you mean. Then, yes, I feel that. A long silence followed. He worried he had said too much, or too little. Then her shoulders lowered slightly, as if some heavy load had shifted, not gone, but moved to a place where she could carry it with less pain. I did not know if humans could feel that for someone like me, she said softly. He gave a small smile. Humans feel it for many kinds of people. Sometimes we don't even understand why at first. Her expression changed, just a little. The sharp commander's mask did not disappear, but it cracked enough to show warmth beneath. The moment might have lasted longer, but the ship did not allow peace for long. A new alert sounded, not the loud battle siren, but a sharp, urgent tone that meant something serious was happening. The engineer's console flashed with messages. The enemy fleet had not fully retreated. A second wave was coming, and this time the enemy weapon was stronger. The bridge requested her immediately. They needed her on the front line. The armor needed to be sealed and ready. She looked at the engineer for only a second, but it was enough. He understood what she did not say. She was leaving again, and now the question she had asked had changed everything. It was no longer just duty pulling her into danger. It was also the fear of losing something newly discovered. He moved quickly, returning to work. I'll finish the emergency reinforcement now, he said. It will reduce the disruption from the enemy weapon. She nodded. Do what you must. He focused with full attention, tightening connections, rerouting energy paths, adding human-built stabilizers that could function even when alien neural links were weakened. The armor's internal systems pulsed, accepting the changes, like a living thing learning to breathe differently. As he worked, he spoke, because silence now felt too heavy. When you asked me that question, he said, I froze because I thought I might say the wrong thing. She stood close, watching his hands. You did not. He glanced up, briefly. You are very brave. I have fought many battles, she replied, but that question was harder than any fight. He understood, and he respected her even more. The final lock sealed with a clean sound. The armor's light steadied. System stability climbed beyond previous levels. For a moment, he felt relief. Then he saw a warning reading, something he did not expect. The enemy weapon was adapting too. It was learning how to disrupt any standard pattern. Human redundancy alone might not be enough. They needed something else. Something unpredictable. His mind raced. Humans survived by adapting, by changing in the moment, by making choices based on instinct and care rather than rigid rules. The armor now responded to her emotional balance. If she could hold on to what she had just discovered, connection, purpose, then the armor might resist disruption in a way the enemy could not predict. He looked at her. Listen, he said. This next battle will try to pull you out of sync. The weapon attacks neural patterns and predictable control loops. She nodded. Then I must control myself harder. He shook his head, gently. Not harder. Clearer. don't fight your emotions.
Use them. Let them guide you without taking over.
Your armor is no longer fighting against you. It's working with you. She stared at him for a moment as if those words were dangerous in their own way. Then she gave a slow nod. I will remember. The doors opened, and officers waited to escort her. She placed her helmet back on, sealing herself into the warrior the entire Empire trusted. But before leaving, she stepped closer. Very close. Her voice was quiet, almost hidden under the ship's noise. If I return, we will speak again. He nodded. When you return. She held his gaze for half a second longer than necessary, then turned and walked out with steady steps. As soon as she left, the engineer moved to his console, connecting directly to battle monitoring systems. He was not a soldier, but in this moment, he felt like he was fighting too, using wires and data instead of weapons. On the screen, the fleet formations shifted into defensive positions. Enemy ships emerged like shadows, their weapons charging with that strange disruptive energy. Allied ships struggled as systems flickered. Then her signal appeared. She launched into the fight with controlled speed. Her armor glided, sharp and smooth, reacting to threats instantly. The enemy weapon pulsed across the battlefield like a wave, and many Allied systems shook under it. Her armor flickered once. The engineer's chest tightened. His hands moved fast, adjusting remote stabilizers. The readings showed interference, but not collapse. She stayed stable. She did not force control. She moved with clear purpose, protecting Allied ships, guiding them through openings. Her armor's energy lines steadied, as if it was anchored by something deeper than programming. The enemy focused on her again. Multiple ships attempted to isolate her, cutting her off from support. The engineer watched, heart racing, though he kept his hands steady. He sent rapid system boosts, but he knew remote support could only do so much. On screen, she made a choice no one expected. Instead of retreating, she moved forward, not recklessly, but with intention. She created space for Allied ships to escape, positioning herself as a shield, not just a blade. The armor's readings surged. Not unstable. Stronger. The enemy weapon hit again. Harder. For a brief moment, her armor's systems dipped toward critical. The engineer whispered, "Stay with it. Stay with yourself." Then the readings stabilized sharply, almost like a snap into place. It was as if the armor had found a new pattern the enemy could not break. She turned, moving with precision, striking at the enemy's disruption emitters with focused tactics. Not traditional Empire tactics, something else. Something adaptive and creative, like a human engineer finding a workaround instead of following a manual. Allied ships followed her lead. The fleet stopped reacting in panic and began moving like one body, shifting and adapting, refusing to be locked into predictable formations. Slowly, the enemy's advantage collapsed. One by one, enemy ships fell back. The disruptive weapon weakened, unable to hold against the unpredictable rhythm of human-style adaptation mixed with her disciplined leadership. The battle ended not with a grand explosion, but with the quiet truth of retreat. The enemy fled. The fleet held. Inside the ship, cheers rose in corridors, but the engineer stayed in the repair bay, staring at the screen until her signal returned. Minutes later, the doors opened. She entered with slow steps, armor scratched and worn, but intact. When she removed her helmet, she looked tired, but her eyes were clear. She did not look like someone who had barely survived. She looked like someone who had changed. He approached carefully. "You're back." "I am," she said. Her voice was calm, but there was something softer in it now. He gestured to the platform. "Let me check the systems." As he scanned the armor, he noticed something unusual. The armor was not just stable. It had evolved. Patterns appeared in the data that were not present before. a new form of synchronization. Not based on strict suppression or rigid control, but on clear emotional focus. The armor had learned what humans already knew. Strength could come from connection. Other officers entered the bay to congratulate her. They looked at the engineer too, some with surprise, some with respect. Political resistance softened in the face of results. The Empire valued victory, and she had delivered it in a way no one predicted. When the officers left, the repair bay grew quiet again. She stood near him. No guards, no audience, just two beings in a large room filled with silent machines. "You were right," she said. About what?" She searched for words, then spoke simply. "Strength that understands itself lasts longer." He smiled, remembering his own words. "You proved that." She looked at him for a long moment. "When I felt the disruption wave, I thought of your explanation of love, not as weakness, as choice." He stayed silent, listening. "I chose to protect," she continued. "I chose to trust. I chose to return." He felt something tighten in his chest. Not fear, not panic, but a kind of quiet emotion that he could not easily name. He spoke gently. "I'm glad you returned." She stepped closer. "I asked you a question before the battle." "I want to ask another." He nodded. "Ask. In human culture," she said, "what happens after love is spoken?" He paused, then answered honestly.
"It depends on the people. Sometimes it becomes a promise."
"Sometimes it becomes a partnership. Sometimes it becomes a journey where both learn and change." She studied his face carefully. "And what would you want?" He took a slow breath. He knew this was a moment that could not be forced, only respected.
"I would want you to be free,"
he said. "Free to choose your path, not what others demand. And if our paths can stay close, I would be grateful." Her expression softened again. She lifted one hand, not in command, not in threat, but in a gesture that felt careful and new. She placed it lightly over his forearm, not gripping, not claiming, just resting there as if testing the truth of closeness. "I do not know all your human words," she said quietly, "but I know this. When you are near, I feel steady, like the armor does." He smiled softly. "Then we can learn together." Outside the bay, the ship continued its journey through the stars. New missions would come, new dangers would appear, political debates would continue. But something had shifted across the fleet. Humans were no longer seen only as new allies or clever technicians. They were seen as something else, builders of bridges, not just machines, carriers of a strength that could change the way others fought, the way they led, the way they lived. The engineer looked at the armor one last time, realizing it was no longer just a suit. It was a symbol of a new kind of alliance, one where empathy could stand beside power without shame. She withdrew her hand slowly, as if respecting his space, then stood straight again. The commander returned to her posture, but the warmth remained in her eyes. "Come," she said. "Walk with me." He hesitated for only a second, then nodded. He cleaned his tools quickly, locked the bay systems, and followed her toward the corridor. They walked side by side, not as warrior and technician, not as royalty and outsider, but as two individuals who had survived change. And somewhere behind them, the repaired armor rested quietly, ready for whatever came next, shaped not only by metal and code, but by something uniquely human, the courage to care.